Hello, welcome to the Rhythm of Business. I'm your host, Dr. Terry Daniels. I'm excited to have as our guest today, Mr. Dan Hunter, who is the owner, founder of Workzinga out of Nashville, Tennessee. And so we're glad to have you. And as we get started, Dan, welcome to this and welcome to our audience. Again, just get a overview, just tell us a little bit about you as we get started and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today and to share a little bit about our story with your audience. We founded Workzinga with a basic principle around helping companies redefine their relationship with their workforce. I've spent many, many years, more than I will actually count, in various levels of leadership, building out organizations. And the constant challenge that I see that every business sees is really keeping a workforce that's engaged.
Yeah.
And by engaged, I mean I don't mean that they're just there for the paycheck. Obviously, that's important and that's totally understandable. But when you're talking about engaged, you're talking about people that will stick with you during those tough times when you got those challenges, and they stay innovative, they stay motivated, they stay committed, they stay loyal, and they stay. They don't leave at those early signs of trouble. And that's challenging to build that if you don't put culture first and foremost in that relationship.
Mm.
So our goal is to really help companies redefine that relationship and move away from solely looking at things like experience and skill set and education, things that unfortunately are easy to check a box during an
Yeah.
interview, but aren't necessarily predictive of
Mhm.
success the way cultural alignment is, or making sure that the people in the organization are really meshed well together
Mhm.
on what are the goals, how do we want to move forward, what are our values, how do we want to operate together. I think when you make that front and center for the relationship,
Yeah.
then you can build those workforces that truly are sticky.
Yeah, that is awesome. And again, I love that idea about that culture really being the leading edge because that's where the difference is made. How did you, with all your experience, I know you have a lot of years you want to share, but how did you get the bug to be an entrepreneur? Did you just sort of take the leap as the audience is listening, like, here's this individual who's very successful, has built his organization and team. How did you take the leap into this entrepreneur world?
Yeah, because it does take a leap of faith.
Mhm.
There is a lot of risk involved. I know that a lot of people think it's very glamorous to be your own boss, but I'm telling you, you're not your own boss. You have more bosses when you're an entrepreneur than you've ever had in your life previously. So for me, and I think the journey can be a little bit different for every person, but for me, it was spending a lot of years seeing these challenges that I could not solve. Within my
Mm.
role in the organization, I was not empowered to solve them. Not saying it was my company's fault. There aren't tools, there aren't resources, the focus is not there. And I really felt like it can be conquered. This can be done. Nobody else has done this, and somebody needs to, because it's not just good for
Mm.
company bottom line, it's good for the people within the company as well. We've done a survey around cultural alignment and the value that it plays to employees. And by a large margin, three-quarters of people said, when I'm in an organization where I really felt well aligned with my company's values, my personal psychological well-being is positively affected. So it's
Mm.
not just about the company getting people that stay longer. It's about people that go home at the end of the day
Yeah.
happier. We all talk about how you feel Sunday night
Mhm.
before you have to go into work Monday morning says a lot about,
Yes.
your relationship with your company. That's what we're trying to address. And that's the piece that I felt has been missing for so long. And for me, I felt like I have an idea about how to fix this. I have an
Mm.
idea about how to make things better, and I wanted to act on it. And it does take some courage, but
Mhm.
I was in a situation, I had a lot of support around me that, basically people saying you should do this, go try it.
Yeah. I love that idea, as you say, Dan. There's a problem, somebody's got to fix it, and I'm stepping in, I'm putting my hand in, I say, I'll go do it, right?
Yeah.
How do you maintain your energy for this this battle, this fight? I hate to use those words here,
That's
but how
true.
do you maintain the energy for this fight, this battle, day in and day out, knowing that a lot of organizations don't get the reality and truth of what you're talking about? How do
Right.
you stay in that battle?
It's
What do you do to keep yourself energized?
it's tough. I think it starts with being in it for the right reasons in the first place.
Hmm.
If you're in an entrepreneurial endeavor and it's purely for money, then every time you hit a roadblock or an obstacle, you're going to question, should I keep going? Should I keep moving forward? But when there's a greater ideal at stake, and when you feel more passionately about it, I think some of that energy comes naturally. It doesn't make it
Hmm.
easy. It doesn't mean you can conquer the world on day one, but it does mean you want to get up the next day and keep going forward. Um, one of our one of our mantras within Workzinga, we have three that we focus on: trust, challenge, and win. Those are
Mm.
our three values, and it's all about challenge. You have to see the challenge as energizing, not debilitating.
Oh.
You have to be willing to hear no and not let it sink you, but rather let it drive you to the next
Mm.
conversation you have, and you try to make that conversation end in a yes. And
Mm.
sometimes the yes is, I get it, I agree, I love what you're doing. The product's not for me, it's not going to work for us, I don't have the budget, I got it. But when I hear somebody say, I love this idea, I wish I could do it, okay, then I got a convert. I got somebody to listen and to
Mm.
acknowledge it's the right solution. The other things are details. You can work on many of those things. You
Hmm.
can work through a lot of those obstacles. If you can win the heart and the mind of the person and you help them see that if you put culture front and center, everybody wins. When they walk away from that conversation with me and they acknowledge that, I got it. Now,
Well,
and the rest is,
and I think that as I hear you say that, is that A, you're driven by your own passion to resolve things, but you also have put something in place to overcome something that could stop you. A no could stop a lot of people,
mhm,
but you put something in place to overcome that no by saying, okay, it doesn't work for you. I think those are the kinds of things, people who are going into entrepreneurship may, find this roadblock and they get stopped, right?
right.
Because they didn't anticipate that this is just part of the journey. So as you look at this work, go ahead.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It absolutely is. It's part of it. Um, Nobody gets to success without some failures along the way. And
Hmm.
success is always sweeter when you've had those things along the way that you've had to overcome. Um, it's always sweeter through adversity.
How have you had to adapt along the way as you've grown from one person, Dan Hunter, to your team and multiple different organizations that you work with, and
Yeah.
yeses, nos, everything in between? How have you adapted your
You know,
business as an entrepreneur?
one of our favorite words has become pivot. And it's every entrepreneur's nemesis, but
Mhm.
saving grace.
That's good.
Because certainly in our case, the original path we set out was not the most successful path. It became clear. And so we had to move and we had to
Oh,
shift.
wow.
Um, and you A/B test, you relentlessly A/B test, and you find the better, the better path. It doesn't mean it's the best because you're only looking at two things.
Hmm.
But choose the better one, and then test again, test again. So our original path is not where we see ourselves today with what we envisioned the product to be. Um, the underlying principle that we're trying to achieve is still there, but the method to get there, it had to change because we were seeing obstacles that while you couldn't overcome them, you could absolutely go around them. So, I'm a firm believer in don't stop. Keep moving, even if it means shift to the left or the right. Just shift, but keep going. That's what we've done is, over time we've seen this target audience doesn't work, we'll try another audience. This message didn't work, we'll do something else. The product even morphed in the early days. So like I said, the underlying principle that we're trying to achieve here, we stayed true to that North Star, but the way of getting there, you can have 1,000 different ways of getting there, and you have to be willing to try 999 before you get it right.
Well, I think that is a powerful lesson right there. If no one hears anything else, right there, that the journey we began had to shift and change, but we maintained our North Star focus. But what we began and the product and I think that's what entrepreneurs may lose along the way is that here's the way we're going to do it, and we're going to make all this money, and it's going to be great being my own boss, uh, and we're going to live happily ever after.
Only.
Maybe,
If only it was that simple. And I know there are some stories out there that it is just that simple,
yeah,
but they're absolutely in the minority.
yeah,
That is the one out of 10,000.
yeah,
Um, for the rest of us, you slug it out every day.
yeah,
But if you really believe in what you're doing and you think that it can make a difference, then you have to go on.
yeah.
I mean,
That is awesome.
what's the alternative if you really believe in it? You find a way to keep it going, even if it means scaling back, even if it means getting smaller, even if it means slowing down, find a way. And
Somebody,
I certainly don't want to make it oversimplify it and say that everybody's idea is always going to get there because that's just not the case. There will be failures, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't set you up for success on the next time you try.
but I think the wisdom with which you're speaking, Dan, is really where the magic happens. It's just pacing myself. I'll start this way, ran into this, pivoted. I mean, I love that word pivot. Again, I think that is the wisdom that any entrepreneur needs to absorb because they can make it. It's just a matter of understanding all these small things that could happen. If you
Right.
can't go that way, look at another way. Pull back, start over, just just keep going if that's your passion, right? So
Yeah.
when you think about all that you've accomplished thus far and you got this burning passion, uh where do you believe you can take your organization and where do you want to go with it?
Yeah. And like I mentioned, for me, it's this principle of redefining these relationships. And I think that it's more than just a single product. I think
Mhm.
it's more than just a single solution. I think it becomes partnerships. I think it becomes embracing other solutions. And we have formed some great partnerships just already with other players in the HR space,
Mhm.
whether it be staffing and recruiting professionals or consultants, in order to, again, further it. And I've had some really good conversations with big players in the HR technology space. But the underlying principle is always the same. It's how can my vision be augmented by this relationship with you? I think that's how you get the multiplier effect. I think it's very hard to
Mm.
take a straight line and grow to this huge success point where you have all of these customers and all this revenue. I think it takes relationships along the way where you partner with people and you leverage those relationships. I think that's the key for us. And in these early days, it's all about just kind of establishing the principle and making sure that we have something that is kind of a proof of concept that we can
Yeah.
point to. Then then the people will, look at it and say, yes, I want to work with you because I want to embrace that as well. And so you get these other players on board that can bring other audiences. And slowly, yes, but you get there. I
Mm.
think that you begin to change how companies are relating to people. But it's going to take our own growth trajectory, and then it's going to take some really strategic partnerships.
How do you as you're lit as you're speaking, how do you I mean, your passion comes through, by the way, even on camera. How do you infuse this passion into others, whether it's a partner or whether it's an employee? Uh, how do you infuse this passion? And I think an entrepreneur is, I mean, I think passion sells, right?
I
I
do.
think, but how do you infuse the passion into others so that as you look at your growth, it takes a groundswell of its own?
For me, the cornerstone is speaking with authenticity. I respond to it when I see it. When I'm listening to somebody, if I feel like they truly believe what they're saying, They may not be articulating the idea the cleanest. It
Sure.
may be a little muddled. They may be using a lot, something I do. Yeah, there it goes. See, so they may not be the most prolific and the most eloquent speaker, and I don't care
Yeah.
because the authenticity comes through in what they're saying. That's what I lean into. That's how, when I talk about this product with people, that's the consistent feedback I get. I can tell you're passionate about it.
Hmm.
I talk with, VCs, during funding calls and whatever, they're like, it's clear you're passionate about this product. It's obviously coming through. It's that way when we talk with, potential partnerships or potential clients. I'm our main salesperson. And
Okay.
because, and it's not a trust issue, it has to do with the fact that I can get this across to people. Now, is that scalable? Is that sustainable? No. But in the early days, that's what you do. You wear every hat.
Where?
Uh, but I lean into the authenticity with which I feel about this topic. If I was selling something else, I would not be successful at it at all. I wouldn't be convincing because I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
believe in it. But I think when you really believe in it and it comes through, you capture people. They may not want to buy it. They may not be in a position to buy it, but for that moment, you had them and they're on board with you, and they walk away as someone who says it's a great idea. I can't do it. It's not for us, but it's a great idea. I wish we could.
Yeah, I think it's that I believe in my product. I believe in its impact and what it can do, and I think with that again, it's allowed you to stay the course, right, and keep that faith going on, and then that's awesome. So one last question here, as you think about the audience that may be listening, what advice would you give to them if they're sitting in their kitchen writing on a napkin, got this great idea, or they're sitting in a restaurant, noodling ideas around with someone? How do they push themselves to that next? What
Yeah,
advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's
there's
contemplating and considering?
there's a couple of things. One is talk to everybody. Talk to everybody you can about it. I think too often people are concerned about kind of flying under the radar that someone might steal their idea. That absolutely does happen, but it's not nearly as commonplace as what people believe. So I think talk to people and you achieve a couple things. For one thing, you're getting borrowed perception from people. You're getting someone, telling you that sounds like a great idea. They
Mhm.
probe you with more questions. Have you thought about? Sometimes those questions can catch you off guard because you haven't considered it. That's good. That's good because
Mhm.
you want a friend to throw you off guard, not a potential client. So
Yes.
talk to people, get their thoughts about it, get their feedback. Doesn't mean that they're in the space, doesn't mean they're going to be a client. Talk to them.
Mm.
Second, the more you talk about it, you talk through your idea and you can begin to formulate and answer more of the questions that you didn't even realize you should have asked. So for me, number one is just talk to people. For this project, I talked to everybody I could. People that were in the HR space, I talked to friends, I talked to family, I talked to everybody,
Yeah.
because I needed both to get it out and to talk it through, but also to hear what people had to say. The second is you have to challenge yourself to stay humble. You have to be willing for people to push back and say, I'm not sure that's a good idea. I don't know how you're
Right.
going to sell that. I don't know who's going to buy that. It doesn't mean it stops you, but it does mean that you take it in and you listen to it, constructively. Don't let it crush you, but also don't come out of the gate with, I got the best idea in the world and you're too pompous about it. You need to be humble and be willing to kind of
Yeah.
soften those edges a little bit because one of the most humility creating endeavors there are right now is starting a business. That
Yes.
that is humbling. Because as smart as you think you are, nah, there
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are a
Yeah.
lot of things that you didn't think about. So that's another way in those early days is, focus on humility. Really think about taking all of this feedback in and using it constructively. And then third, research, research, research. There is no excuse for having a poorly researched idea. There is too much out there available
Mhm.
for free in the public domain, that can feed you good information about whatever your topic is. Can you find everything? No, but can you absolutely get started? Certainly.
Yeah.
So if you're not spending copious amounts of time in front of Google, just, querying everything you can, get on ChatGPT, get on anything you can and find out everything you can. The more you can soak up about this idea, the better off you'll be. I've got a mentor who's a former CEO of mine and a good friend of mine. And he has done multiple startups, and I've been fortunate to have been with him on a couple of them.
Mhm.
And he is just an avid learner. When he gets an idea, he just goes in full on the research side. And he lives it and breathes it until he feels like he knows enough about it to kind of begin having those initial conversations. So that's my third piece of advice is just research.
Wow. Dan, I feel like I could listen to y'all. They just so you know. I mean, certainly thank you so much for your, I mean, just time and wisdom and passions and sharing with the audience. Just this is real world, this is real life, but everything is possible. And thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
To the audience, thank you for listening. Uh, this is Dan Hunter with Workzinga out of Nashville, Tennessee. They do a great work with culture and cultural assessments and work. So thank you all so much for listening. We hope to see you again next time on our the Rhythm of Business podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.